Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this time I would like to have a little bit of a discussion on how it appears Nintendo is hinting at the future of Mario Kart World's roster. The roster is already fairly sizable at a total of 50 characters, and if you account for costumes, there's definitely a great deal of options to choose from. I myself have yet to unlock every single combination of character and costume in the game, but there have been some things said by Nintendo as of late that are leading people to wonder what is next for Mario Kart World in terms of the roster. We look at Mario Kart 8 and how many characters were added over the years. Is Mario Kart World going to see a substantial increase to the base roster? And if so, what kinds of characters are we going to see added? Well, after the latest things said by Nintendo, I think we have a pretty decent idea. So that's what I'd like to get into today. Let me tell you about this sleep mask from Manta Sleep, the sponsor for today's video. If you find yourself in need of a little bit of extra rest or an afternoon nap, then this sleep mask might be a great fit for you. When I tried it out, I was actually surprised at how soft and comfortable it is, and when you put it upon your face, it does its job. It blocks out all light and it puts you in a position to sleep quite easily, undisturbed. And I also found that the back strap was highly adjustable and not abrasive in any way. It was all very comfortable and soft to put on. So if you're looking to improve your sleep, check out the Manta Sleep mask in the link in the description below with my code SLEEPRESTART. So I would like to start things off by reading this piece from this French publication, Ouest France, who conducted an interview with Mario Kart World producer Kosuke Yabuki. Now heads up, at first this might seem a little negative, but I think when we dive a little bit deeper into it, there is some interesting potential here. A surprising cast. Kosuke Yabuki is also behind ARMS, a fighting game released in 2017 on Nintendo Switch. Did he ever consider integrating this game into the Mario Kart World universe? Absolutely not, he says with a laugh. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe did indeed include characters from other franchises such as Link from The Legend of Zelda and Marie from Animal Crossing. Now, keep in mind this is a translation. I believe Isabelle is actually Marie. Marie is just the French version of Isabelle. Anyways, in Mario Kart World, we are still with Mario. As developers, it would have seemed incongruous to us to add characters from other games into this universe, and it didn't seem necessary to us given everything we could already do with Mario. However, Mr. Yabuki remains very attentive to the player's perception. We inevitably wonder how many players will perceive this casting, but there are so many characters and so many costumes that every player is sure to find something to suit them. And scrolling a bit down here, it said, ever since its debut in the first trailer of Mario Kart World, the cow has become a favorite with players, both for its cute design and its quirky style. We were hoping that the addition of these new drivers would be a pleasant surprise for players, but the reception has been so warm that it surprised even us. It definitely exceeded our expectations. And I think that's enough to read from here. And so, the main takeaway, clearly, is that going into Mario Kart World, they were focused on the world of Mario. So, bringing in other Nintendo franchises into Mario Kart World was not the direction they took here, and that may also imply that they're not going to be adding Nintendo characters later on via some sort of free update or paid DLC. Which, personally, is a little disappointing if that ends up being the case, because my main in Mario Kart 8 is actually Link. Specifically, the Breath of the Wild version was the one I most preferred using, so to not have access to Link anymore in Mario Kart World, that has been a little bit of a transition for me. Of course, I still have Donkey Kong, who I used a lot back on Mario Kart 8 for Wii U before Link was even added, and more recently I've taken to using Daisy quite a little bit. And so there are plenty of options here. We have all the different NPC characters that are involved, like Cow and Dolphin and so many others. And I do appreciate all these additions. There is a sizable roster, especially when you account for all the costumes. But inevitably, there are going to be updates to this game, and I do think they will eventually add more characters. So should we rule out entirely this idea of them eventually adding other Nintendo characters again? And I think based off this interview, at face value, I think we should probably lean in the direction of they probably won't be adding any other Nintendo characters. Now, it is mentioned how they are paying attention to how players will receive this roster, and as I just talked about, for me personally, there was a little bit of an adjustment, but there are a variety of options to choose from. So it's not like you can say the roster in this game is weak. but it is certainly different from Mario Kart 8. And from that perspective, Mario Kart World having its own identity I think is important. And so if there are updates to Mario Kart World in terms of adding more characters to the roster, which I think is very likely, then we should probably be erring on the side of them being from the Mario universe and not so much other Nintendo characters like Link or Captain Falcon or Star Fox or what have you. It may be the case that Nintendo's just going to save Smash Bros. For crossovers like that. But before going forward, let me point out I'm aiming for a goal of 60,000 subscribers, so if you find yourself enjoying my content, your subscription would be appreciated. To provide some room for optimism here, if they're ever going to add new tracks to this game, like straight up and totally new tracks, which also I do think is likely, I think the easiest way to go about doing this and the way that probably makes the most sense in terms of an expansion is to just simply provide another bit of land to explore, like maybe like a smaller island next to this Mario Kart World that you can drive over to, that's maybe like a quarter or a half the size, so this would be a significant DLC eventually added, and this island would have to be like a Nintendo-themed island, and in that case, where it's not really a Mario Kart World but a Nintendo Land, which might be a fantastic name for a Mario Kart World expansion, Mario Kart World plus Nintendo Land or what have you, in that scenario, then yeah, they can go to town with adding the different Nintendo characters, and all of a sudden it would make more sense. Of course, there are other directions they can take with DLC here, and that's not the point of this video. The point is to talk about how Nintendo's been hinting at this future roster for Mario Kart World. And we've gotten a little bit more than just this recent interview. So some of you may be aware that not so long ago there was another interview where Kosuke Yabuki was asked about Diddy Kong, and he said, "I'm afraid I can't say anything at this time." And that's all he said on the matter in terms of Diddy Kong being included in Mario Kart World. But you see, this interview happened before we got the Donkey Kong Bonanza Direct, and since then we've gotten some very interesting confirmations here. Diddy Kong and Dixie Kong, along with Cranky Kong, which we already knew about, are all in the game and in a fairly significant way. Not just like a random reference, but actual interesting gameplay segments. But also something else we've noticed about Mario Kart World is that most of the characters, the main characters, they have a variety of costumes, but two characters. DK and Pauline only have their main costumes and one alternate, which is very strange in comparison to everyone else, but we've now learned in Donkey Kong Bonanza that Donkey Kong and Pauline, who has been confirmed to be the co-star of this game, each have so many different costumes in the game. And so it's been theorized by some, including myself, that there may be some cross-promotional updates in Mario Kart World in lead up to Donkey Kong Bonanza next month. And so the stage is totally set here for new costumes to be added to Mario Kart World for Donkey Kong and Pauline, and perhaps also some different Kong characters as well, like Diddy Kong, Dixie Kong, and Cranky Kong. Hey, maybe even Rambi has a shot. Maybe not as a character, although that's possible given we have things like Penguin and Dolphin, but maybe Rambi could become a cart. It was interesting when we saw that Rob is a cart and not a character, so maybe they might do something similar for something like Rambi. And so it seems pretty likely that we're going to get some sort of Donkey Kong related update to Mario Kart World in the not so distant future here. And there are other possibilities for characters to be added to the roster that I have not mentioned, like maybe King K. Rool's in the game. That's a possibility. But on the note of crocodiles, I do want to say, there are other characters that are in Mario Kart World that are not playable that I find to be kind of interesting, like a crocodile, or like a giraffe, or a rhino, or a buffalo, or an elephant. There are these different animals, and also other enemies in the game that are not playable characters, but they're not too different from some of the characters we already see playable, like Cow, who is just another animal in Moo Moo Meadows, or like Dolphin, who we see in the ocean. So I wouldn't be totally surprised if there's a later update where other animals and different enemy characters are added as actual playable characters, more playable NPC characters. So that's one way they can easily expand the roster. But assuming Nintendo's only going to stick to Nintendo Universe characters here, there is more potential, going beyond just Donkey Kong. For example, I've been theorizing that we might not be that far off from the next Luigi's Mansion installment. Even if it doesn't come out this year, I feel like by the end of next year, chances are fairly high, and with something like that in mind, if they are going to use Mario Kart World to cross-promote different games, perhaps there might be some cross-promotion for Luigi's Mansion where we see a character like Professor EGAD involved, in Mario Kart World. I think that's an interesting possibility. And going back to this idea of them adding other tracks in the future, what if instead of going to like a Nintendo Land, what they do is they continue to expand on the Mario Kart World? Maybe they do have to add islands, but these islands aren't islands from different Nintendo franchises, but more within the Mario universe. Like, what if in one of these expansion areas, they add Bob-omb's Battlefield? And so if you add Bob-omb's Battlefield, you have King Bob-omb maybe as a boss, but maybe also possibly as a playable character as well. Or what if we have like a Mario Sunshine area and they include Petey Piranha? So that's another interesting direction they could take this game, where they could start actually including different areas from different Mario games into one other island or another couple islands, and there'll be other characters that were involved in those areas that we could see as well. We've yet to even see the Koopalings, for example, who are pretty significant characters. So there's actually quite a bit of different Mario universe characters that could be included here, especially when you account for the Donkey Kong universe, which is a part of the expanded Mario universe. And if these different characters are also going to get costumes, then there's a lot more potential for options here. Like, maybe they would go back to some of these different NPC characters like Cow and Dolphin and Penguin and start giving them some costumes. I think a lot of people would really appreciate that, especially given all the attention characters like Cow are getting. Like, imagine Cow in a dress. I think people would eat that up, and the Mario Kart World team might be realizing that. But the further I get into this recording, the more and more ideas that come to mind here. So, we've never seen Cappy involved. Like, Cappy from Mario Odyssey makes a lot of sense to be a playable character in Mario Kart World. And since we're thinking about 3D Mario, well, what about the next 3D Mario game? I do not think it's that far off. We talked about that yesterday. Historically speaking, 3D Mario is always involved early on into every Nintendo generation. Maybe it's not coming out this year because of Donkey Kong Bonanza, but next year, I think there's a really good chance we're going to see 3D Mario. And even if it's not next year, Nintendo may be planning to support Mario Kart World for years throughout the generation, and so they may be adding different updates for years. So if there's a game that comes out where there's some sort of relevant update that they could add to Mario Kart World, then they might do so. So if there's some sort of new character introduced in Mario Kart World, or at least maybe new costumes for some of the Mario characters like Mario, Yoshi, and Peach, then they can add those as well. And so when I think about it from this perspective, given that Mario Kart World is a launch title, it's almost like the ideal launch title from this perspective, because as time goes on, they can continually update this game to feature different characters or different updates to different characters from different games that come out throughout the generation. Will they continue to do this based off how they handled Mario Kart 8? No, but we are at least seeing some evidence that they're going to be doing it with Donkey Kong. So if they do it with Donkey Kong, might they do it with others? I think there's a decent chance. And I think we'll start to see confirmation of this theory in a Nintendo Direct not so long from now. I know some people think a Nintendo Direct is not going to happen this summer, but they always have summer directs. I don't think this is any different. There's a lot of things that need announcements for, and I do think that there should be an initial announcement regarding some updates for Mario Kart World, which may include some of these other Nintendo characters from the Donkey Kong universe, which would then fuel the theories for others to come later down the road as well. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Make sure to check out that Manta Sleep mask with my code SLEEPRESTART in the description below, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.